Hello and welcome everyone to the Laszlo Upshift Festival. We will be celebrating the upshift to a bright alternative way of living anew through the publication of a milestone book, an exclusive podcast series by the Shift Network, multiple video messages sent by inspiring people, and an insightful TV documentary trailer about the life of Professor Ervin Laszlo. My name is Nora Cesar, the organizer of this one-of-a-kind event. I wanted to say a huge thank you to all the people who helped with this event, including our wonderful tech team, Izzy and Andrew from AV Lifted Productions, and to Fabrizio, our webmaster, for making sure that everything will go smoothly tech-wise. This event will have two parts. During the first part, Dr. Laszlo will talk to our hosts, Bill and Gayle Gladstone of Waterside Publications, about the upshift and what it means. We will read excerpts from the book and do a live Q&A with the audience. Then we will watch pre-recorded videos, which include very special messages and appearances from Dr. Laszlo's friends and colleagues, such as Bruce Lipton, Jane Goodall, Master Shah, Greg Braden, Hiroen Masami Sayonji, and lots more others. They will talk about what it means to upshift in these unprecedented times. Then there will be some music throughout the program as well, just like how we started this whole program with some wonderful piano music played by the one and only Ervin Laszlo. So without further ado, I'm handing it over to Bill and Gayle Gladstone, who are not only the host of this event, but also the publishers of the Upshift book written by Dr. Laszlo, with forewords and afterwards written by Greg Braden and Michael Beckwith. Thank you all for being here.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to the Upshift Festival and to the book launch for Professor Dr. Ervin Laszlo's book, Upshift. Upshift was deeply rooted in a young boy at 7 years old as he walked through the countryside of Budapest with his uncle, learning and discussing the nature of reality. At 9 years old, doing the music as a concerto pianist, and at 11, he was vastly awakened to the horrors of the war-torn Budapest through the Nazi invasion. And bravely, he offered his services to go and collect in through the deep of the night, collect bread and water for his neighbors and his family that were hidden deep within homes to protect them from the war. And vastly at the same age, his innocence was taken as he saw the horrors of the war. He left Budapest because of the war. Then at 14 became part of Carnegie Hall and played there at that young age. He enjoyed a beautiful life of concerts and marriage and children. And by the age of 30, he was merging his philosophies with his living pieces of music. He began to open his heart and his mind and his soul to the wisdom of the cosmos. Sharing, like others here that are sharing today, Ervin has upshifted to lend a hand in the shaping of a new world about to be reborn. We invite the universe, the spirit of the universal wisdom, united with our highnesses, harnessing the power of wisdom, we gather to upshift as one. This great spirit is here for you, and you are here for us, for me, to gather, to raise the vibration of the planet together as a whole.
Thank you, Gayle. We thought it was important to have a little bit of background on Ervin's personal evolution. Those of you who have an opportunity should purchase a copy of the biography autobiography of Ervin, and you'll get many more details. We have known Ervin for over 25 years. And in that time, we've become very good friends. And what I've always been aware of with Ervin is he is a true genius, but he is also a man who comes from his heart. Everything he does for a higher purpose. I think part of that is probably based on some of his childhood experiences that Gayle has just spoken of. And one of the things that has always been center of Ervin's personal evolution is a connection to wisdom. Because I have represented, I'm a literary agent, I've represented some of the Nobel Prize winners and scientists and people who created the internet and everything else. And there are many, many intelligent people on our planet, but very few have the broad perspective that Ervin has. Very few connect with wisdom. Wisdom goes back, it's underrated until now. So much focus on the most innovative new technology. Well, there's a lot of technology that is being used very unwisely. And what Upshift, the book, and the movement, because this book is really the beginning of a movement, is about bringing wisdom. If you look at the subtitle of the book, wiser living. We must go back, and I say this is really going back to indigenous beliefs. It was wisdom that was most venerated in smaller societies. This is the individual groups that really were on this planet thousands of years ago. And those that survived, a lot of it had to do not with their technological prowess, but with wisdom. And that is what we need more than ever right now. And what we need, obviously, is to combine the wonders of technology. I'm not denigrating our technology or the brilliant minds that have created all of our technology, but we must, at this time, switch, upshift, shift our focus, and start bringing wisdom into everything that we do so that we can live more responsibly. First, I want to have a brief conversation with Ervin on why now is the moment for the Upshift book and the Upshift movement. And then I will want to introduce Lynne to also have a conversation with Ervin about why this is so critical. You're going to have a wonderful time today, those of you who can stay for the entire event. We have so many wonderful speakers, but the most important is Ervin. So Ervin, please provide a little bit of background on why now, why Upshift?
Thank you, Bill, for asking this question and giving me the opportunity, and altogether everybody, all our friends who are organizing this fantastic festival. I'm deeply grateful to them. But it's an opportunity to talk about something which is no joking matter. It is the linchpin, it is the fulcrum for the destiny of humankind. No bigger words can be spoken that would not apply. Everything applies the largest word, because we are at a turning point. We are at a tipping point. We are emerging out of a global crisis. And we are now learning something about being together on this planet and living on this planet. We have lived irresponsibly, irrationally even, on this planet, creating a world that is good for us in the immediate short-term future, but is disregarding the balances, the oneness which is in this world all around us. We have reached a point where a crisis is upon us, an ecological crisis, a health crisis, a refugee crisis, a social and political crisis. We are not past it yet, but we are now seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. And that light must be focused on the individual, on persons. We have got to live more responsibly, wiser on this planet. We have got to live in tune, aligned with the harmony of life, with the oneness of life, of all life and of the planet. And this means living with each other, not for an immediate short-term benefit, never mind the rest, living so that we are part, that we know that we are part of a larger whole. The indigenous people have known this, traditional people have known this. We have forgotten it. In the past few decades, actually a few centuries, humankind has lived in an irresponsible way, just promoting its immediate short-term interest and saying goodbye to the oneness, which is around us, of which we are a part, forgetting that we are part of something larger, that spiritual people have always known, that scientists have known. But the everyday life was only focused on the short-term interest, short-term profit. And that has got to change. So wiser living, I want to wrap this up, and because then we can talk in more detail. Wiser living means living in a way that we can all live, that all life could flourish and thrive on this planet. To begin order, nothing less will do. Only this can take us forward. So I'm very glad to have had this opportunity to talk to you now. Glad to have written this book because I'm now publishing it today. So Bill Gladstone is a publisher. We are publishing it today to bring it to your attention. What I want to say about this book, read it, and perhaps it will tell you something that you need to know. But also remember, it's not the end of the story. This is the beginning of the story, beginning of a new era where we either shift up to a better world or we may be locked into a back shift, which could be a downshift. We need to shift up, and we can. Another chance may not come that easily, not in our lifetime, certainly. So here we are at the very threshold of a new era that we can shape by being wiser in the way we treat each other, the way we treat nature, and the way we live on this small and precious planet.
Yes, one of the things I'd like people to realize is the concepts in the book are actually quite simple. It's very basic, but this is wisdom that we've forgotten. How do we live together in a way that does satisfy the majority of our short-term goals, because we do live in the moment, but also provide a path forward so that not only is there a habitable planet for our children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, but actually a better planet and a better world and better opportunities. And it is not a zero-sum game. We can do better, and that's where Ervin is so inspiring.
We can, and it's up to the individual. That guidance for better living, for a better world, doesn't come from the outside, doesn't come from the authorities of any kind. It comes from inside. We each have this natural instinct, the natural intuition of living in harmony with each other. This has been known for thousands of years in the traditional cultures. Seeking harmony, seeking oneness. It seems to be an esoteric spiritual quest, but it's a precondition of continuing the survival, continuing the adventure and the evolution of humankind on the planet.
Yes, and one of the things that I like so much is some of the principles in Upshift are really the things that we learned at our mother's or father's knee. Kindness, respect. We start with these very simple values, and then we use them. And we use them as we grow in stature and maturity and interact with others who are in positions of power. It is not the people who are in positions of power who are going to make the difference. It's each and every one of us affecting how we ourselves serve as examples of the upshift. And therefore, every single person, not just those who are going to be speaking today, but every single person listening, every person you're going to be sharing the book with is immediately part of the Upshift movement, part of the energy that needs to appear at this exact moment in time to ensure that everyone on this planet starts behaving more wisely and with greater care and greater stewardship for each other and our planet.
Yes, Bill, the Upshift is a reawakening. Recognizing who we are. We are not separate. You know, Einstein says all separateness is an illusion. And I think all the great scientists and spiritual leaders know this. Realizing that we are part of it. We are part of a tremendous quasi-living planet that is evolving, has been evolving, has to continue to evolve. We neglected this. We thought we are beyond it, we are above it. We could use it as we wish. No, we have to be part of it. Returning to the source, returning to the oneness with the planet. That is the big task in front of us. I'm trying to show some of how this can be done by individuals, how you can do this. You, the reader, you, the listener, the viewer, you can be part of this tremendous adventure of returning to the source, becoming again one with life on this planet. That way we can strive, then we can live together. Otherwise, we are in danger of denigrating, decaying the world around us, as is happening very, very rapidly. The sixth global extinction is on us. Will the humanity be part of that? Not if we are conscious and we act, we become wiser. It's time to do that. It's a survival imperative. It's not a joke. It's not an abstract goal. It's a survival imperative. We better become wise and learn to live together with nature and with each other. That's the task in front of us.
I think now would be a good time. I believe we have recorded one chapter from the book, and we were going to play that. And then those who are listening, who are inspired, can use the chat and send in some questions and take advantage of Ervin's presence, and he'll answer at least a few of the questions. That, you know, we are tight on time. We have at least a dozen presenters. And one of the things that's so uplifting, upshifting for me is that the other presenters, and they're a very distinguished group, are resonating so closely with Ervin's ideas and are doing so much on their own that is already contributing to the upshift. So I remain very optimistic, even in the face of what are clearly tensions throughout the world, that we will make the upshift. So, but let's listen to one of the chapters from the book.
The Upshift, Wiser Living on Planet Earth. We live at a historic turning point. The global crisis from which we are emerging is an unique opportunity. It holds vital lessons for our life and for our future. It makes clear that we are all in the same boat. We are one people with one destiny. But it also makes clear that our boat is unstable and in urgent need of repair, indeed of redesign. The political and the business communities are now waking up to the need for serious change. But creating a fundamentally new world doesn't depend on political and business people, but on the will and the vision of the bulk of the human population, on people like you and me. Do we understand what is at stake and what it is that we can do about it? Given that the aftermath of a crisis offers the opportunity to create a new world, understanding the nature of the world we could create is crucial. Whether or not we seize the opportunity to create it decides whether we shift up to a sustainable and life-friendly sphere of life, or drift down to growing and ultimately terminal conflict and chaos. In the last count, it decides the destiny of the human species on Earth. Creating a world in which we live in harmony with each other and with life on the planet is feasible. But to create it, we must know how to live more wisely in our own life, right here and now. This is the task and the opportunity we discuss in this book. Waking up and acting on it is in our own vital and immediate interest. The Upshift is to help you meet the challenge of our epoch. It is a handbook for urgent action, for wiser living by you and by me, and by all conscious and ethical people in the womb of a delicately balanced web of life on our precious home planet.
That is very inspiring and very much the essence of why Upshift is more than a book. It's the beginning of a movement. It's the beginning of a movement that is already underway. It's underway in many different corners of our planet. The Laszlo Institute is going to be one of the centers for the Upshift movement, but it's not the only resource that is coming, because this is a universal call. It's a call to everyone to immediately begin thinking in terms of global survival, global thriving, I would say. What can we do as individuals to ensure the best possible outcome for each of us, our communities, our world, and the future generations. We're open for anyone who wants to send some questions to Ervin in the chat. What are the principles and simple rules for guiding humanity to upshift our human consciousness to higher levels of civilization? This comes from Rick Botello. So, Ervin, it's a big question. But
it's a very relevant question
Yeah.
indeed. Thank you for asking it. I believe that there is a motivation inside us. There is a spirit that is driving us. We are not passive beings. There is something which helps us to seek harmony, to help us to seek working together, help us to be coherent with the world around us. This is a scientific fact. The universe was born in a chaos 13.8 billion years ago, according to cosmology. And since then, it has been moving toward coherence, toward higher levels of order, despite of the many fluctuations and fallbacks. On the whole, coherence is increasing on the planet. And we are part of that movement. Now we can access that if we allow our deeper self to take control of the way we act. Deep down, we know that we are part of the world. We know that this world is a dynamic whole, that it develops to higher levels of order and coherence. This is not fantasy, this is evolution, cosmic evolution, the way it occurs on Earth, and as well as, of course, in all other planets and places in the universe. So listening to your own self, listening to your deeper self, and acting according to what it tells you to align with evolution. Be one with it, go with it. Don't stand outside of it. Don't try to ignore it, you can't anyway. Go with it, be part of it. Then I think we can act wiser and we can be part of the solution and not part of the problem.
the next question is one that really intrigues me. The question is, can we feel the truth of reality beyond illusion as more than a mental construct? How do we join duality with non-dual oneness consciousness without going into a cave? Very provocative question.
Well, that's probably a question that asked Plato and scores of philosophers since then, but all spiritual people. How, yes, accessing, I think, our deeper self, who we really are. We are not just flesh and bone organisms living according to mechanical laws in a universe which is a Newtonian passive universe with space and time just a backdrop. We are very much a part of an evolving universe, of an evolving world. How do we access this? We can listen to science. Yes, that will tell you something about it. We can rediscover the great truths of the spiritual systems, from the Western systems to the Tao. Everywhere there's the seeking of the oneness, which was the origin of this world. This is prominent. We can also experience beauty, art, experience nature. All of that helps us to understand that we are part of a wondrous universe. Let me just quote, to conclude this, with quote Einstein, who said, there are only two ways to live your life, as if everything is a miracle or as if nothing is. Now, I think everything is a miracle. This is a miraculous universe. We are miraculous beings. It doesn't mean that it's mystique, that's ununderstandable. It means that it's not mechanical, not flat, not passive. It's a driving, growing, evolving world. And joining it, consciously being part of it, is the way that we can ourselves grow and allow the world around us to grow and develop as well.
One of the unique aspects of your work, Ervin, is your musical ability. Can you just comment a little bit on how your love of music and your higher frequency when you play music has contributed to your own evolution and your own thought relating to the upshift?
You know, I just talked about the seeking of coherence as a basic element of one's life, of one's spirit. There is nothing more coherent in the world than great music, wonderfully performed. That's a different experience from the everyday world. That's an experience of oneness that's unparalleled. It's an experience where everything makes sense. Nothing is superfluous, nothing is missing, where everything is whole. I was lucky from a childhood on. I had this experience of great music. I discovered that I have some talent for music. I've been playing concerts since I was 9 years old as a prodigy, childhood prodigy. But what was important for me is not directly talking or playing for people. What was important for me is the experience, experiencing this dynamic oneness, this dynamic floating and flowering that you feel when you are playing music, when you are with it. You can feel it to some extent, of course, when you're listening to it. When you are with it, when you're in it, you feel it even more. So ever since my childhood, I've been seeking this coherence, this sense of unity, this sense of belonging, and been seeking it through science. And I'm finding it because the contemporary sciences and the latest development are all talking about this central role of coherence in life and in the universe. And that is, I think, something we can learn. We can learn to go in and emulate nature, be part of nature. We can learn from science, and we can learn from art and poetry and all forms of the great aesthetic experience. We have it at our hands. Let's use it. Let's become a more coherent individual who can be as coherent as the web of life is coherent on this planet. That's how we join it.
Wonderful answer. From Mark Moody, do you believe that there is complete scientific proof now of the Akashic field and the Upship movement? I'm a little concerned about complete scientific because I don't think anything's ever complete, but please comment on that question.
Well, great philosophers of science have said that science cannot be proved, but it can be improved. So there's no complete scientific proof for anything. But there's as good a proof as for anything else that this world in which we live is not a separate mechanical world, but an interconnected world where all things influence other things. More than influence, where all things are becoming that oneness. And that's a quantum physics tenet. When you do something to a particle that has been split in half and has been projected to someplace else, then you then do something to it at one location, that distant location will feel that the particle will act as if you were there, as if you were doing it to that half of the particle. That's non-locality. And that's a proven scientific fact. We are not separate. We are not outside of each other. We are inside a field which is a quantum field where all things interact, where all things cohere, where all things in the optimal case can evolve together. And we can call this, according to the ancient knowledge, call it the Akashic field, because it includes all things. And if you are wise, you can even read some of it. You can understand the world better by entering in communion with this Akashic field.
We have another question. I'm not sure who this is from, and it's more on the, I would call, frustration side of the equation. This writer says, you know, I read Macro Shift many years ago, but I'm seeing more signs that the shift has been down in the last 20 years since you've been writing about the tipping point than up. What do you see that is positive, and why have we experienced so much negativity over the last 20 years?
Well, I agree with this question. I agree with this comment. We have been sliding down towards conflict, towards separation, toward artificial ways of living, and all of that has taken its toll. I don't pretend to be an expert of virology, but I think even this virus is a consequence of our living in an unnatural, artificial way, bringing in a virus into the circulation of the human food chain and eventually allowing it to penetrate to the web of life on this earth. But that's one element, an important element, but one element only. We are living in a way in which we have separated ourselves off from the rhythms, the balances of life. Sure enough, the last 20 years has been a sliding downwards. That is why we have this crisis. It's a lesson. It's an opportunity to reverse that trend, to go from down to up. This is the time when we can upshift. We have downshifted. We can upshift. And if we are at least minimally wise, we know that we should not backshift. We should not go back. That would be going down. Upshift means you can go forward to finding that natural unity, which is the goal, the objective of evolution, the very texture of life as a higher level. Or spirituality, we know it. Science, we know it. Now, in practical life, we also have to adopt it and know it. Shift up to a larger level of coherence with each other and with nature, with every leaf on every tree, with every element of every DNA, wherever it is in this biosphere. It's all evolving, it's all growing. We are not separate from it and we are not above it. Let's live with it and learn from it, to be with it. Be the change you want to see in the world. That's what Gandhi said.
One of the questions is related to education for children. First, the Upshift book itself, what age group do you think is appropriate? How young can someone be to read the Upshift book? And is there a possibility of creating specific materials for younger children based on the principles of the Upshift book?
I think these are simple principles. I try to write in such a way that is both simple and convincing. If it's too simple, then it's not convincing anymore. Then it's just that it's somebody's thought, somebody's imagination. I have to document also what I'm writing, but I want to be clear. And clear means being simple as possible, but not simpler. This is what Einstein also said. So I think we could make the message of Upshift available to children in grade school, because children know this. Children know that they belong together with their playmates, with the world around them, with the trees and the rivers and the clouds above. They know this. We educate it out of them. We can leave it in them. If we can leave this knowledge, wisdom, grow, let it grow when we are allowing a child to become himself and herself truly, and not artificially separating oneself from the rest. Work together, live together, yes. Grade school, certainly already starting. High school, obviously, very much so. And I think if the young people who are entering college and trying to find something more, find out something more about life, about existence, they could read this book and they could say, aha, it's not difficult, it's not complicated. It means aligning. It means allowing yourself to be what you were meant to be, what nature made you, what the Creator made you. A natural creator. I believe the universe is a creation, is a living entity. If we are part of it, if we are with it, I think that young people can understand. And there is now a host of scientific data that says we are not mechanically connected, we are intrinsically connected, we are inherently one. That is a message that I think every young person can understand.
There's another question that is so well phrased. Let me read it in full, and it's directly related. Is the major problem to upshift globally not that each human being is vibrating to his or her frequency, and to have a symphony and not a cacophony? These individual frequencies have to play in tune with one another, isn't it? So how to upshift the individual frequencies of the people the world over. So,
well, you don't have to pick up the frequency. We're not engineers. We're not creating ourselves through technical means. The alignment of our frequencies will come when we recognize who we are and what the world is. We have neglected a very major element of this world, of the human world, and that we can call consciousness. Consciousness means that we have a mind, we have a mindset, we have what we in my institute we call a paradigm. And this mindset is what tells us who we are and what we are and how we can go forward. So consciousness, the role of consciousness is crucial. That by employing consciousness as a living being who can feel, who can sense the world, and not only abstractly try to benefit from it, they use it for his or her immediate purposes, but feel it, try to be part of it consciously, because consciousness has so many levels. It's not only the rational consciousness, it's the deep consciousness, it's the deep subconscious that great scientists like Jung and others have always explored, that even physicists like Schrödinger and Pauli have rediscovered. This level of frequency is a dominant frequency in spiritual people. It's a dominant frequency in children. It's a dominant frequency in artists. And when you look at the EEG patterns, we know that this frequency is lower. There's a lower range of frequency than the general, usual one. Usually we are in beta, and we are in this transcendent oneness kind of a frame of mind. Then we're moving down to alpha and even theta and even down to delta. It's interesting. Delta is the deepest level of frequency, between 1 and 3 frequency per minute. When people are in delta, they're usually deeply asleep, except spiritual people. Deeply spiritual people are awake in delta and can communicate. So we can shift down. For once in all of life, we should shift up. But when it comes to frequencies, we should shift down to lower frequencies. Then we become more spiritual people, more open to information about who we are, more open to being one with each other.
Gayle is
Yes.
going to comment a little bit about the sacredness of the exact date and moment that we've chosen for the festival.
Yeah, so we are present now. And in that presence, there has been chosen 2/22/2022. That is 6 twos. Twos are relationship. And the relationship of 6 is in the higher frequency. It would be calling on the cosmos, so to speak. And as you add them together, they become 12, which is the dodecahedron, the symbol of the universe in mathematics. And then as you add the 12 together, you come into the 3. And the 3 is the mind, the body, and the soul. And together with the mind, body, and soul, with the dodecahedron of the mathematics of the universe, coupled with relationship between that and human beings, we see the magic of the presence that we are in now, and we call upon that presence to integrate within us.
Thank you, Gayle. This is knowledge that comes from the heart. It comes from a deep intuition, and that you enlarge it, you complete it with your knowledge of the significance of numbers. It's an ancient art, started with Pythagoras, and it's still valid. We don't understand everything about the world. Sometimes the magic of numbers can help us.
I think we should wrap up the question part of the event. There may be opportunities later on for a few more questions, but we have a lot of guest speakers that have already sent in some pre-recorded messages as well. So to get them in, I think we need to cut off the questions at this time. Lynne McTaggart is one of the most influential authors in the world. She's written 7 books. Her intention experiment has been universally acclaimed for its potential to impact in a positive way so many different individuals and organizations on this planet, that we are truly delighted that she is joining us. And she is so aligned with the essence of Ervin's work over the last, well, really his life, and particularly since speaking as a systems theorist about the upshift versus the downshift, and the reality that all systems either disintegrate into chaos or rise above. And obviously, we want to rise above to a more beautiful system, if you will, and one that is in greater harmony. Lynne, delighted to have you.
Thank you so much, Bill. Thank you so much, Ervin. It's great to be here with you.
It's wonderful that you came, Lynne. And I look forward to having a brief exchange with you. I think the idea of intention and working through intention is so very relevant today. Thanks for pioneering that.
Oh, absolutely. And I think what's so brilliant about all of the work you've done has been a call for many years that we need to do something differently, and looking at it as a whole. And the whole idea that we have to upshift is so close to my heart, because we see we really have reached an end of days, as you've said. And we are now getting to a point where everything is so corrupt in our systems, politically, economically, with having to do with climate. We are so polarized. There's so much going on. We do have our backs up against the wall, and that is a perfect time, as Barbara Marx Hubbard said, as somebody pointed out, for change. You know, somebody's pulling the trigger, so we need to do something very quickly.
How do you see, let me be asking one question, then go on to you. How do you see in practice meeting that challenge that is awaiting us? This challenge to shift up.
Okay, a couple of ideas. Number one, we have to change our story. And you talked about it when you said our story is about our essential connectedness. Now, one of the problems we have is we're living according to an old scientific story, a story that has defined us as separate entities that are very well behaved, operating according to fixed laws in time and space. The Newtonian idea that essentially ripped us out of the heart of our world by creating this new framework that has given us technological mastery over our universe, but left us with the most appalling sense of separation. And that was also compounded by the work of Charles Darwin, at least the interpretation of the early work of Darwin. Later on, he refuted some of this, but he was interpreted to be basically saying there isn't enough to go around, so life must proceed through struggle. So that whole idea of us being separate and needing, and life being a race to the finish line, has created this idea of competitive individualism. And that really is at the heart of everything that is going wrong with us now. And we have reached an endpoint there, where we have so much corruption, as I say, in our political system. We have so much corruption in our economic system. It's every man for himself. There is so much lack of concern, and it's built into our upbringing. From the time we were small children, we learn to be competitive. So that has to change. Now, one of the things that I'm very interested in is not trying to change the big picture, because I think there's a level of power and corruption that is very difficult to change to the degree that we need. But we can make amazing ground up change. And that's certainly the work that I've been doing, the power of intention in small groups. You know, Margaret Mead's wonderful, well-known quote, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed individuals can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." And it's true through all of history. Big change starts with small groups. And so one of the things that I've been experimenting with is demonstrating to individuals in just small groups of 8 or in groups of 25,000 when we've done the intention experiments, that we have powers that exceed anything that we've been told, that we have the power to create, we have the power to change, we have the power to heal. So number one is about assembling in small groups. And number two is understanding that we do have enormous power. We have the power of a grassroots movement, like you want to initiate, Ervin. We also have the power of our wallets, and never underestimate that power. We can refuse to take something, refuse to buy something, refuse to use something that is harmful. So I would first start with intentional groups, which is power of 8 groups, as I call them, because they give people a sense. I mean, I've seen thousands of healings over the years, since about 2008, with people in small groups, being able to use group intention to heal things within their group and things without their group, not just their health, but also their lives, their finances, their career, their relationships, whatever. And I've seen that kind of extraordinary rebound effect that occurs when people do intention in a group. Not just the recipients, but the senders also heal. So it gives people a very tangible idea that that old scientific story is not true, does not reveal, and does not in any way approximate the magnificence that we are and that our world is, and that we can understand and work with. So I think number one is really changing our story. Number two is about starting from the ground up with this movement.
Lynn, thank you for that insight. What I'm about now, which I'd just like to mention a couple of words, is to start something which is based on the person, on individual people. I would like to invite people to join what I call the Upshift Movement. How do you join, and why is that important? Why? Because I think everything ultimately will depend how the individual lives. I say in this book, wiser living on planet Earth. The question is, individuals need to live wiser. I assume that individuals know how to live wiser. If they really look around, if they really listen to themselves, they really reflect for a moment, they know how they can live in harmony with nature and with the world around them. So I'm starting a movement. It's called the Upshift Movement. We start with individuals, with asking individuals to come in, to respond to a call, pledge living more wisely, and say in a few words, or in a little longer if you like, how it is that you think you can live more wisely. Then bring these people together, create projects, empower them, ask sponsors to come in and help, and create larger projects through which individuals can come together and live wiser. Because ultimately, if the individual starts living better on this earth, the whole situation will change around us. The problem is we disregard the possibility of how we need to live. We disregard a crucial role of other people in our lives, of nature in our lives. So I'm starting a movement on Upshift Movement. Ask people to come and pledge their living more wisely on this earth. Tell us what that movement is, what that more wise living is, and allow us to bring people together who are committed to a wiser living and create a movement where people can actually realize their wiser living goals. It can be done. We can start with where you need to start is the person. Bring the right people together. Allow them to recognize each other. Allow them to work together. So the intention, starting from the ground up, that's what you're doing, Lynne. I'm trying to do this also with the recognition that we have in this moment in history, we have the chance to change. We are living, coming up, emerging out of a crisis. hopefully we can see now the light at the end of the tunnel. We are emerging, and we need that guidance, which only comes from inside us. So ask people to come, look at themselves. Can you live wiser? And if so, how? And then let's join together. Let's empower these movements together. So that's my plan. And I hope that you, Lynne, and people like yourself, and so many people around us can recognize it and can create experiments also. For when people live together, when they come together for wiser living, they have a new intent. They'll change the world around them. I think they will. And I think there's one way to do it very quickly and very efficient.
I think, Ervin, everything you said is so true about us knowing inside who we really are and knowing how to live wisely, because, you know, the science that I've looked at demonstrates that we need to belong as human beings. We're never meant to be competitive. We need to give. We need to be fair. These are built into our DNA, essentially. And we also experience, anybody who does something altruistic, people who do altruistic things, even simple acts of kindness, live longer, healthier, happier lives. The science is unequivocal. So we need to go back and inside ourselves, as you say, we really have that innate wisdom of how we're supposed to live and really go to the source rather than listening to the siren calls of making more money or winning at any cost. You know, we need to go beyond that. We definitely need to go beyond that. And I really applaud you for what you're starting.
Well, Lynne, I think it is so important that we have these discussions. I think what we have forgotten is that this world is what the ancients call the holistic world. It's a world, it's a one world. I think even very recently, I mean, the previous generation, Erwin Schrödinger said that wholeness, that consciousness is no way in which it could be said in the plural. Consciousness is one because we are one. And that comes from a quantum physicist. You know, Whitehead said that. I think Einstein knew that. I think we have to recognize that the truth is that when the whole is one, when the whole is coherent, when it's together, then every part benefits. Whereas if you only aim at the part and disregard the whole, very often you can make the whole decay, you can make the whole disaggregate, and the whole then becomes something which is out of control. Think of it. Take care of the whole. Take care of life on earth, because you and I, we are part of that life. We'll only thrive when life around us thrives on earth. So return to this holism, return to the source, return to knowing who we are, and then come together and act. Then we can change our world.
Absolutely. And, you know, what you said is so wise too, this whole idea of really focusing on what holism actually means. Because, you know, many people in this movement, many people in general say, oh yeah, we're all connected. Well, what does that actually mean? What are the implications of that? You know, it's no good sort of saying, yeah, we're all connected, and then going back to those old ways of being when you're at work, when you're working at business. That has to be a fundamental operating principle in every aspect of your life. We're all connected. If we're all connected, that doesn't mean we only connect with Democrats or we only connect with Republicans. It doesn't justify the great schism that we have now, the great polarizations we have. If we're all one, you have to reach over. The heart has to leap across the fence. So we have to start understanding ways of speaking to people who aren't like us, connecting with people who disagree with everything we stand for, because they're still part of the whole. And the same goes with bringing this to work, not just on Sunday. Bringing this to the way we bring up our children, not just a batch of words that we say. You know, this needs to be incorporated into every area of our lives. And perhaps, as you say, it's got to start with the individual. And then once you embody that yourself, then you can start that movement, that it becomes a ripple effect around you.
The movement has to be a self-evolving, self-sustaining movement based on the individual who is naturally wiser but doesn't know how to live that wisdom. That's why I say not only act wiser in politics and in business or in civil sphere, but live it. Live it in everything you do, every moment of the day and night. Live in such a way that you are not a cancer on this web of life, but a positive factor, which adds to its coherence, adds to its harmony. An ancient objective now become more important than ever. And now it's more possible than ever before. We never had a global crisis before, not at that level. We had it and we're emerging out of it. This is the time. If we don't change now, I don't know when we will change. But I'm confident that this is a time when we not only can change, but we will change.
There's another comment that your conversation has influenced. And this is such a good comment. I want to just read it to everyone. The comment is from someone named Ariel. And she says, I pledge to live more wisely on earth and join the Upshift movement. I think that is the beginning of the movement. If we can create a pledge to live more wisely, perhaps Ervin in his brilliance will come up with what in a practical sense that means. And if everyone just did a pledge every morning when they wake up, it's just something they do personally, that they pledge to live more wisely, they will, by just doing that, be part of the Upshift movement. So I want to thank Ariel for that. So Lynne, why don't you have one more question with Ervin, and then we have not only the pre-recorded messages, but I know that we have at least one of our other illustrious commentators who joined the live Zoom, and Baring, who I think wants to have a moment or two with Ervin, and there may be one or two others. So we're going to end up going longer than we had anticipated. So I really want to thank you and give you one sort of concluding moment to wrap up your words of wisdom as well.
Well, all I want to say is I think everybody should take a pledge, and I really bow to the greater wisdom of Ervin to come up with that pledge that we can all live by. But the point is, it's about what you already are. As I say, my work is about examining the extraordinary abilities you already have that have been denied you by this story and by the authority figures and the way that we've lived. So it's about reclaiming who you really are. And who you really are is so much more magnificent than the you that's been living unwisely, as we all have been living unwisely. So I really invite you all to explore that extraordinary extended human potential, that much more uplifting and revitalizing story, the new scientific story showing that we truly are all connected. And by going deep into yourself to understand that you actually have all of these good qualities inside you, giving, being fair, loving, all of those things are part of you, are central to you. And so I invite you to explore and find them too.
Thank you so much, Lynne. And one final comment that you've inspired in me is I think that we really need to emphasize compassion, because so many of those who are supposedly unawakened and doing things that are creating chaos are to some extent victims of a system that was created before they even arrived, where they had so much negative programming that many of them actually believe that they are doing good when they're contributing to chaos. And so we need to have compassion for everyone. And I think your comments about it doesn't matter, Republican, Democrat, what your political beliefs, other ethnic diversity, we are all in this together. And we are all trying in our own way to improve the world. And so I think that the more inclusive we can be to people who are not necessarily identifying themselves as spiritually interested, let alone awakened, the more effective we're going to be. Ervin, do you have a last comment on your conversation with Lynne?
What you said, Bill, what you're saying, Bill, being inclusive is necessary. If anybody is really missing from this upshift endeavor, the upshift will not succeed well. We all have to be together. A living organism is a coherent whole of all its elements. A successful movement is a whole of all its members, of all its adherents. Being inclusive is a necessity. Nature is inclusive. Nothing is left out of it. Humanity, when it's wise, it's inclusive. We have to be in it together as one. And this is the tropism. This is the deep element, the impulse that is deeply in us. And let me add just one word, a four-letter word that we have mentioned so far, which I think is so important, and that's L-O-V-E, love. When we are coherent, when we are joined with others, what we feel is love, unconditional love. The great spiritual masters knew this and they still know it. Scientists are recognizing it now. And I think it's the key to creating an upshift where we are capable of loving each other and loving the world in which we live.
Thanks so much. And thank you so much, Lynne. I think we have one or two more speakers that are going to jump on live, and we'll have just a couple of more short interviews, and then we'll get into the pre-recorded part of the program in which we have over a dozen wonderful speakers sharing their information. Thank you for joining us.
I'd like to thank Ervin for everything he said and Lynne for everything that she said, because it's absolutely just what we need at the moment. My work has been with the rescue of the feminine principle, which began to disappear 4,000 years ago. And because of all the things we've been taught to believe and all the emphasis on sin and guilt and separation from the divine, we've been completely programmed to look upon ourselves in the wrong way. And we've got to change that whole formation, really, and understand that we're divine beings, that we're cosmic beings, and that we're here for a purpose. And that the purpose is to do the will of the cosmos. And so this has been my work to bring that message through. And it's coming through Ervin, it's coming through Lynne, and thousands of other people on the planet who are gathering together, really. And it needs to include Putin, because Putin is an example of someone whose psyche has been deeply, deeply damaged, traumatized probably in childhood. He's been brought up in a Stalinist system, which in itself was catastrophic. And the grandiosity that he exhibits and the inflation, hugely inflated ego, is a compensation to his deep sense of unworthiness and also to his suffering that he must have lived through in growing up in that regime. And possibly, I don't know what his parental situation was. But so we have to really have compassion for him as he rapes Ukraine. I mean, it is the most awful experience for all of us to watch, having been through the Second World War and thought that was hopefully the end. And now we're seeing a scenario which could lead to another war. So we have to be extremely vigilant of what our own lives are doing and extremely vigilant in the exercise of compassion and inclusive to everyone. So I think that is about the feminine principle. That is bringing back the feminine principle into our culture. And it's coming back, thank God, through quantum physics and the connection of all of us to everyone else and our connection to the cosmos. And we are really the voice of the cosmos waking up on this planet, which is exciting and thrilling, I think. It's a tremendous responsibility, a tremendous privilege to be of this group of people who are waking up and who are able to hear the voice of the cosmos and pay attention to it, to its call, because this is what my book, The Dream of the Cosmos, was all about, was really responding to the call of the cosmos at this moment in time. So I think that's all I need to say. And thank you for inviting me and for allowing me to say these few words. And thank you, Ervin, for all your work, which has been of great value to me.
And you are a person whom I always admire. It's one of the greatest living spiritual persons in the world. And having you voice this in the way you do is a great, great satisfaction, a great reinforcement for the idea that we indeed are embarking on a road which could lead to an upshift. We could, because we are trying to find who we really are, and find out our connection, find out our oneness beyond spirituality, beyond even quantum physics, our oneness in reality, and live it. If we can do that, we will certainly shift up. And if we don't do it, we are in grave danger of shifting, running down. Thank you, Anne, for your spiritual insights, which are more needed today than they ever have been.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I must say, Anne, you've inspired me to remember my good friend, David Loy, who actually is the person that introduced me to Ervin Laszlo, who was Rianne Eisler's partner throughout her life, his life rather. He passed recently, and the work that he and Rianne have been doing with the Partnership Way addresses, and you know, her wonderful book, The Chalice and the Blade, I think addresses some of the issues that you too have been dedicating your life to. But I did want to just comment and in a small way pay some homage to David, because his life was truly exemplary, one of the most extraordinary human beings I ever met, and so grateful to him for introducing me to Ervin and all that has come from our partnership as Ervin's agent and friend with his book. So just want to acknowledge David's role in really helping humanity so much throughout his lifetime.
Well, I can say that David has been one of the persons that has inspired and motivated me almost more than anybody else in his life. He's one of the most wonderful persons I've ever met. And it's a tremendous loss, except that I know that his spirit is somehow still with us. We can still live with it. But I'm glad that you can remember David Loy, a great human being.
Yeah, he was extraordinary intellect, but even a more extraordinary heart. And that's the rare combination that I think the world needs so much right now. Let us now go to the pre-recorded messages. You're going to be inspired. I listened to them all, and I'm going to listen to them all again. They're just wonderful people. Shows how important the work that Ervin has been doing the last 40, 50 years has been to them, and how important this Upshift movement really is. This is much more, I mean, I've represented thousands of books, and I don't think we've ever had a festival to open a book. And that's because we've never had a book quite like the Upshift book that really has the potential to make such a major contribution to the world. So let's go to the pre-recorded. Ervin will be coming back. The pre-recorded messages are lengthy. I do warn you, it's almost 2 hours, but we will be coming back afterwards for a short wrap up, including some wonderful piano playing. Ervin still plays as the maestro he is, and then just a few words from Gayle and I to wrap up. So stay online. You're going to enjoy the next 2 hours.